Today we're going to make tuna with veggies and pasta, but I'm using salmon instead of tuna. This should be done with Ahi Tuna, but salmon is fine as a substitute. Tonight, Esther Tebeka, who I interviewed a little while ago, former TV show host from Wuhan, will be interviewing me. So it's switching a little bit. Before we start, I'm going to invite everybody to give some tzedakah. I didn't introduce you properly, Esther. Dr. Esther Tebeka, sorry. If you'd like to give tzedakah with a virtual tzedakah box, there's the link posted in the chat. If you want to see any previous videos we've done, check out our YouTube channel, Chabad GSB YouTube channel. Okay, Dr. Esther, I am all yours.
Okay. I know today's menu is tuna with pasta and the veggie, but last minute I think you changed it from tuna to salmon. Is there a reason, special reason?
Yes. Fish, if you buy fish, if it either has to have a hechsher, a kosher supervision, or if you buy plain raw fish, it's okay, as long as it has skin on it. So you can see that the skin is the right skin that has scales. I couldn't find any tuna without with skin on anywhere. The usual place I buy with a hechsher didn't have. So I went and I bought, I couldn't, so I had to buy salmon, which I was able to get. The one exception, by the way, to buying fish without skin on is salmon from Costco. Salmon has a distinct color. It is possible to fake that, and there have been fish that have been fed colored food and it changes their color. They look like salmon, but Costco is a reputable place and we know that their salmon is real salmon. So that's okay. So that's why I'm using salmon. And what I'm going to start off, if that's okay with you, by I'm going to put a little bit of oil in the pan and start heating that up, and I'm going to cut up the peppers because that requires the most time for cooking. Okay? So here, a little bit of oil.
I see that's olive oil.
I'm actually using avocado oil. It could be either one. It could be olive oil, avocado oil. I like avocado oil for this because it fries at a higher temperature. And as you can see, I put a very little bit of oil. I'm going to turn on the fire and let it heat up. And now I'm going to cut up the peppers. So I have a red pepper and an orange pepper. It could be yellow pepper. It could be 2 red peppers. It could be 1 red pepper. The amounts here really depends on your taste, and because it's different kinds of vegetables, and I've developed this particular type of vegetables because it fits with my they fit with my nutrition program. But you could add any other kinds of vegetables that you like. And now I'm going to just cut these. Don't need any fancy cutting. Just chop them up.
I can tell, Rabbi Levin, this is definitely not the first time you are cooking and you're cutting vegetables. I didn't know, was this part of the requirement for going to yeshiva to become a rabbi?
Wow, that's a very good question. Let me tell you, it wasn't. They didn't teach it in yeshiva, but we learned it, certainly some of it in yeshiva, and I'll tell you in a moment. Let me get these peppers in the frying pan, and then I'll tell you exactly how I learned in yeshiva how to cook. Although in yeshiva I didn't learn to cook fancy. In yeshiva, I went to yeshiva in France. Yeshiva in France was notorious for not having very good food. It was the people who ran the yeshiva were survivors from Russia who had escaped from Russia. They were very holy people. And the guy who ran the food program there was also a very holy person. Holy people are great, but not necessarily when it comes to deciding on what people are going to eat. So the food was left a lot to be desired. Food wasn't great. Every once in a while, when we were all starving, we would go into the kitchen at night and find something to cook. So that was my kind of debut, although I used to help my mother cook a little bit at home too. Okay, I'm going to put this into the pan.
It looks beautiful already.
Thank you, and I'm going to stir it up and cover it. I'm going to let this sit for about on a kind of low-medium flame. Can you hear me? Keep this on a low-medium flame for about 10-15 minutes, and meanwhile I'm going to prepare the other vegetables that go in next. And those are the broccoli and the collard greens. Now, for the collard greens, I'm going to check them on the light table, as I always do. And then, so after yeshiva, I was in yeshiva, and also my father, Al Vashon, had a meat business. He was a shochet, he used to slaughter meat, and also he had a meat business. So I used to help him there a little bit. So I understood a thing or two about food. And then when I came out here to Palo Alto, so I would help Dina cook. And then Dina got pregnant, Baruch Hashem. We had one child when we came here, and then she got pregnant with twins. She could not stand the smell of food. It was just impossible. She just couldn't stand the smell at all. So we had to make a decision. If we were going to invite people for Shabbat, my Shabbat table is one of the biggest programs we do. We've had thousands and thousands of people come through our Shabbat table. Many of them, their first Jewish experience, and we didn't want to stop doing that. So we decided that she would go to bed. She would go to bed about 10, 11 o'clock on Thursday evening, and when she was asleep, I would cook from 11 to 3 every Thursday night, I mean. And that way I would cook for Shabbat. And we had a beautiful Shabbat. I would cook till 3, and then I would wash the dishes from 3 to 4. I didn't want to.
Wow.
She always asked me, "Why don't you wash the dishes as you go along?" So I always wash the dishes as we go along. I said, "I don't know. I like to cook, and I like to cook, and that's it." So then every once in a while, we have people coming, we have programs, this and that, and I just experimented with different things and just really enjoyed cooking. I'll tell you another story about my cooking. For many years, I ran a winter camp.
Sorry for interrupting. Rabbi Levin.
Yes.
Sorry for interrupting. You can go on later, but I'm afraid I'm going to lose this opportunity to ask this question. I see that you're checking on these vegetables. Were you checking on the bugs because you changed to a white cutting board?
This is a light box.
A light box. That's
it's a light box, and it makes it much easier to check the vegetables. You can look and see any bugs on them. Much easier to clean it. Yes, I always check them on a light box. And now I'm going to put. Let me just check these vegetables and see how they look.
Okay. Okay. You were saying about another story of your cooking?
I used to take kids on winter camp every winter. Now Rabbi Rosenblatt runs the winter camp. But there was a time when I would do it myself when I was kind of here myself with just me and Dina, and we did everything. So let me just say, I'm gonna now cut up the broccoli, but for people who are broccoli lovers, this is a very painful sight. But because of bugs, I don't use the crowns, so I cut off the crowns. So I'm going to cut off the crowns off the broccoli.
I was just about to ask a question. Yeah. So because the bug in the broccoli is almost impossible to clean out, so we'll just give up on the flower part. We just use the stem.
Exactly. Anyway, so then we went to winter camp. I would do the winter camp, and I had one counselor with me and I had a bunch of kids. They were like 11, 12-year-old kids. And then I would take them up to Tahoe. We had a place that someone let us use their house in Tahoe. And I would take them skiing, and I would cook for them. So I would drop them off at the ski place with a counselor, and they would take ski lessons or something, and then I would go back to the house and cook. One day, I got a call from a woman who had just gotten married. She was 23 years old. And she said, "I just got married, and I want to ask you, I was with you in winter camp 10 years ago. Can you give me your jelly chicken recipe?" A cute thing. So I used to cook for them. I used to cook here and there and just picked up things along the way. And I always like to try different things. Sometimes when I'm cooking, when guests are coming, and Dina will say to me, "Don't try anything new. Just cook what you know." because I always like to play around, you know. Okay, let me put this in the pan.
That's how good cooks are. They usually play around with the ingredients and come up with amazing recipes.
Okay, so that goes in there. That takes a while to cook also. And then I'm going to put in, now I'm going to cut up the broccoli into small pieces, and I'm going to put that in.
In the meantime, can I ask a question?
Please.
And I find out something very interesting. Looks like the Jewish life has much to do with food. You see, on Rosh Hashanah, we have special food to eat. We need to use apple, honey, right? And then we, Yom Kippur, we don't eat. We fast. And some days we fast. Some days we have special food to eat. And Yom Kippur, before we fast, we eat kraplet, right? Like a Chinese dumpling type of food. And then Pesach, we eat matzah. So we have seuda, this and that, like always something somehow related to food. Is there something Kabbalistic reason to it, or for what? I know food is very essential in people's life. When you very well structured your life around food, it can be holy. Can you give us some insight of that, please?
Yes. So the idea, we are in this world to change the world. Our soul came into the body to change the body. Our soul itself, the spiritual soul, doesn't need to be in this world. The soul is very holy and it's very part of God, and it doesn't need anything. You come to this world in order to affect the body, to bring darkness into light, to turn the physical into spiritual. That's the whole idea of our purpose on earth. And eventually, as we do this, the more we do this, we're eventually moving to the point where the whole world will be cleansed and purified. And then Mashiach will come and we'll see godliness in the world. So we don't want to get away from the physical, because if let's say a person is very, very spiritual and doesn't eat or doesn't get involved in physical food, then the soul is maybe enjoying it, but the body's not having any part of it. And therefore, it's a mitzvah for us to eat on Shabbat, to enjoy the Shabbat physically, so our body should enjoy the Shabbat. And that way we're also elevating the physical body. And the same with every holiday. It says, V'samachta, you should be happy in your holiday. So if a person is happy spiritually, but not the body, then we're leaving behind the main purpose that we're here. And therefore, food is definitely a very important part of it. There's another aspect to that, which I will get to in a second.
I believe by saying bracha over the food, we are also kosher food. We're also elevating everything goes along with the food, from the minerals of the earth until the plantation to the animal to fish, whatever. We're elevating that part as well, right?
That is true. That is true. And by saying a bracha, by eating food for the right purpose. So eating food for its own purpose, for its own sake, just because you're enjoying the food, then we might as well be animals, because animals enjoy the food too. The point is to use the food for a higher purpose, for a mitzvah. So when you say a blessing and you have in mind before you eat that I'm blessing Hashem and thanking Hashem for the food, when the food is kosher, when you're using the food to get strength to be able to do good things in the world, if you have guests at your table, which is a mitzvah, then the food becomes part of a mitzvah, and we elevate it. There's also the idea, and this is part of it, that food gives us strength and food gives us certain abilities. The Kabbalah says that grain gives wisdom. The ability to make words properly comes from grain. Now, how that works Kabbalistically, it's probably too much to talk about at this particular opportunity. But it says also about meat, that meat helps a person to understand. It says that meat should be only for people who are great Torah scholars, because when they eat meat, because meat is something that people get into just for the sake of the meat. But if a Torah scholar eats the meat and then the mind gets broader and is able to understand the Torah better, then that's transforming the meat to holiness. The whole idea is, as you said, there's the mineral gets elevated by the vegetable gets elevated by the animal and all of it gets elevated by the human, and then the human reaches to God That way we elevate the entire creation to godliness. I'm going to now put the broccoli in.
As far as we know, Rabbi Levin, when Hashem created humans.
Before you get to your question, can I just say that different
Okay.
foods cook at different speeds. So I've learned that the peppers need the longest time. Next goes the collard greens. They take a while to cook, and then the broccoli after that, and then the rest of it, I let it cook for a while. And what I want to do now, I can answer your question in a second. I want to get the noodles cooking because they take a while. And what I chose for pasta is I chose rice pasta because I don't eat wheat generally. So I chose rice pasta. What I want to do with the rice pasta, I have what's this called? This is called the long one. What is it?
Where did you get it?
Spaghetti. I got it online. Don't remember where. Somewhere. It's kosher. It has a certification from Canada. So what I like to do is break it in half because otherwise it's just harder to eat. So I know it's nice to have spaghetti, long spaghetti and everything. I like to break it into smaller pieces. It's easier to cook. I'm going to put some water on the fire and let it boil. Now the instructions for this pasta is to put it in boiling water for a couple of minutes and then let it sit in the water for about 18, 19 minutes. So I'm going to get it cooking now. I will boil the water and then let me just stir the pot and then I can talk to you.
Looking good.
So the idea is to soften them and then to brown them a little bit. Okay, go ahead. I'm gonna, while you're talking, there's something I did not put in the ingredients. A little bit of cabbage kind of adds a little bit of flavor. So I'm gonna add a little bit of cabbage and I'm gonna check the cabbage while we talk. Please ask my question.
Okay, I noticed where you are cooking fish, right? So as far as we know, when Hashem created Adam and Chava, and we were instructed, we were all vegetarians. We can eat anything, all the fruit, the vegetables from the garden. But only after the flood, when Noah came out from the ark, the Teva, then we were permitted to eat meat and animals, basically. So what's the difference between eating vegetables, fish, and the fleshy food?
There's nothing wrong with eating meat. Eating meat is a good thing, especially on Shabbat and holidays. I personally don't eat meat except for on holidays and once in a while on Shabbat at least eat chicken. I don't eat meat, but I'm not a vegetarian. And there's a difference between the two. Vegetarianism is a philosophy that I don't agree with. I think it's very good to eat meat for those who can and those who want to, but I personally don't. I only eat fish. The difference between fish and meat is in terms of their physicality. So in other words, meat is the ultimate animal. The animals grow outside of their source. So the ground is the source of sustenance for everything, and we, on land, grow outside of our source. Fish live within their source. Fish can't live unless they're in the water. And that spiritually kind of represents a higher spiritual level. It represents in a spiritual level, the idea of recognizing where we come from, recognizing our spiritual source, and constantly being close to Hashem. So fish is considered to be a higher level. There's an obligation, it says on holidays, to eat fish. The obligation to eat meat applies when the temple was standing and everyone had to eat the meat of the sacrifice. Nowadays, if you eat meat, it's important to eat meat on Shabbat and holidays because that is it's a very pleasurable food. But fish is more important because of that reason. Fish is more kind of connected to, it's considered to be a more spiritual, higher, less physical, more spiritual level.
Yes.
And that, you know, that any food can become tame, which means ritually impure. Nothing in the sea can become tame. So seaweed, anything that grows in the sea cannot become tame.
Like we go to the ocean or the river, go to mikvah, not as mikvah, can purify something that is defiled, right? Spiritually defiled. In my practice, I often tell people to the best food choice would be vegetable, fruit. The next in line is fish, and then fleshy food. I thought during the flood, the fish were spared their lives because they didn't sin, right? So I don't know if that takes account into being healthy or not, or spiritually higher. Is that?
I don't know about health. I don't know. I personally feel much healthier with the.
He doesn't know.
He's so nice.
Yeah.
What?
I personally feel healthier eating just fish. A lot healthier. It's changed. And I also, in my program, the way I understand it is what feeds us is fruits and vegetables and some grains, and the rest is good. You need some protein and stuff, but mostly it's fruits and vegetables. Let me put this in the pot.
So far you haven't used any other any seasonings other than avocado oil, right?
1 second. Yeah, I'm sorry, you said what so far? I haven't used what?
So far you haven't used any seasonings other than avocado
That's right.
oil.
The seasoning is going to go in right at the end. Now, I'm gonna actually start preparing the seasoning in a couple of minutes as soon as I get that into. Oh, I might as well do it now. Okay, now seasoning that I use because of my program, because of my food program. So I'm limited in what I use, and I found creative ways to make things taste good. So I use almond flour. I'm going to take now. I don't measure. So I think in the recipe I gave some measurements. I don't measure. I'm going to take 2 heaping tablespoons of almond flour.
You know, no big cooks usually don't use measurements. It's all on the hand.
All right, I put a little bit more. And now what I'm going to do is the following. I'm going to add some dill. Dill is always good with fish. I'm going to add a generous amount of dill. Rubbed sage is very good. I'm going to put a little bit of rubbed sage. And then I've recently discovered coriander, which I really like.
I've never used.
Can you see? You can see it, right? Generous amount of that, and a little bit of cumin. Just a little bit of dash of cumin gives it a bit of a more spicy taste. I personally do not cook with salt. If you're going to do salt, you want to add some salt to this too. Okay, that's fine. Now, I'm going to mix it all together, and I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to use it later. So this is all my spice mixture. Let me check the vegetables.
So is this American style, Ashkenazi style, French style? What style is gonna?
This is mixed style. This is unity style. Unified all kinds of groups. To me, we're all one. I don't care this style, that style. It's all one. Now I'm gonna the last thing to go in. Again, I'm doing it. I'm staggering the vegetables so that they cook at the right rate. The last thing to go in is going to be the green onion. Now, what I like to do is cut the green onion down the center, and that way I can look at it and make sure there's no bugs in it, because green onions sometimes do have bugs. So I kind of check it, make sure I don't see any bugs here. And then I cut these small. You could also, if you wanted to, you could use regular onions, but then I would saute the onions first. But green onions, they brown very quickly, so you want to put those in at the end. Use green onions.
Throughout the kosher life, since year 2000, I would say, every time I check the onion, the scanning, but I have never found any bugs. Thank God.
I know, neither have I, but I've heard from people who told me that there are bugs in them. So I always check, just to be sure. Let me just see if the volume can go up a little. I'm sorry. I just need a little bit more volume. Okay. And then I'm going to do some cherry tomatoes. I'm going to do about 8 or 9, maybe. You could use 1 tomato if you want. Just a handful of tomatoes. I'm going to rinse them.
Wow, this is going to be good.
And I'm going to cut these up small. So each one, the way I do it, I cut it this way and then twice this way. Doesn't have to be like that. That's the way I like to do it. Just the way I've developed, kind of.
You know, you can put it in the plate, all laid out, and put another plate on top, face to face, and it cuts between the plate and all the tomatoes in there will be cut in half, right? It's a faster way to cut.
You know what? I enjoy the process of cooking. I'm not looking for shortcuts. I like doing it. I like the creativity of it. I like the time off, and I'm very happy that I'm doing it this way, because this way I'm using it for the service of Hashem to connect Jews together. So all works together. Okay, let's mix it.
What kind of pot are you using?
What kind of what?
What kind of pot are you using? Is it ceramic?
The frying pan it's coated with, it has a ceramic coating on the inside. The pot I'm using is a regular stainless steel pot, this one. But yeah, the frying pan, we just recently got it actually. It's some new idea. It's got ceramic on the inside. I'm gonna put these vegetables in last in a little while. I need those to brown a little bit longer. And so that's okay.
How often do you cook this fish?
I don't do a lot of cooking. When I cook, Dina does this a lot. Maybe once a week, maybe once a couple of weeks. I don't know. I just, you know what? I had to figure out things to do with fish, and one day I just decided to try something with some vegetables, and it just worked out. So once in a while, when I have some time, or when I need a real break from what I'm doing, and kind of it takes me away from everything. It's like it's a way for me to rest and relax in the kitchen here and cooking.
This is the first time I've actually seen you cooking.
I know. You know why it comes out blue? Because I think because of this.
What?
I'm sorry, Esther, what were you saying?
I'm saying this is the first time I actually seen you cooking, but I have tasted your cooking before.
Okay, good. Good.
This potato, it was the best I've ever tasted. Baked potato, the whole potato, red potato.
Yeah, I call them, in fact, when I do them for Hanukkah, I call them latkes in the skin.
Right.
One day, I think I'm going to show that one day.
Yeah.
Potatoes, and I have a few other little secrets like that I'll be happy to share one day. Anyway, so this is cooking now, and in a couple more minutes, I just want to soften up a little bit more, and then I'll put in the next vegetables, then I'll cut up the fish and add the fish.
Rabbi?
Yes.
What is the almond flour for? What does that do?
Well, it just adds, first of all, I like to mix the, it adds some body to it, and it adds a little bit of flavor and taste. Since I don't use a lot of oil, I use very little oil, so this gives it a little bit more, I don't know, it just gives a little more body. I just developed it. I used to put in almond slivers, but then I decided to do this, and it just adds some thickness to it. Okay, I'm going to go now and put the noodles into the water.
I think starch might do the similar thing than almond flour, right? If
I
you
think so. I would probably use matzo milk. I used to use matzo milk,
Mhm.
but since I'm staying away from wheat, so I don't use matzo milk, so I use that instead of matzo milk. But that will go in at the end. Timer, 10 minutes. Okay, this is getting soft, and it will be in about another few minutes. It'll be ready to add the other vegetables.
Where did you get the pot cover?
Oh, I got that online. It's a universal pot cover. It's an interesting pot. It covers all sizes. So I just, the frying pan is perfect.
So you can see how it's cooking. You don't have
And
to.
I can see through it. That's right.
It's
It works very
wonderful.
well.
some comes with this kind of cover, all glass. You might be
Well-
able to get it from.
What was that?
Some pot comes with all glass cover.
Yeah,
I know.
oh, glass, but this is also metal with just the center is you can see through.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? I think actually I might have gotten it Bed Bath and Beyond. I don't remember.
Yeah,
Somewhere like that. Probably Bed Bath and Beyond. I
I
don't
think you
remember.
did because I have the same one.
Okay.
Very nice.
Thank
Okay,
you.
very good. All right. A couple
So-
more minutes. We'll get. Go ahead.
Typically, how long does it take when you cook this kind of meal? 20 minutes, 30 minutes?
Well, this is going to take about an hour altogether, maybe a little bit less, maybe 50 minutes. But usually I'm studying or doing something while I'm doing that. So I put the stuff on the fire, forget about it for a while, go stir it. And I'm not usually just doing it straight like this. When I was in yeshiva in France, part of also what helped me to learn about cooking was that there was, excuse me just a second. Let's see. You're going to mix the noodles, stir the noodles following instructions, turn off the fire and cover it, and let it sit. Okay, just let that sit. Okay. When I was in yeshiva, so there was a cook in France who was not very knowledgeable about kashrut. And there were a couple of non-Jewish people working with her. So the rabbi was a little concerned that we had to have more supervision in the kitchen. So of course he went in there and he checked everything out, but he wanted us to keep an eye on it. So a few of the students who had some background in food, like myself, my father was a shochet, my father had the butcher store, and others who had studied the kashrut, he asked us to go in there and to keep an eye on the kitchen. So we used to go in every day. We would kind of trade off. We would go in every day and check out everything, make sure. We always knew where the pots were and where the food was. They had chickens they would bring. There was a guy who used to go and slaughter chickens, and they would bring the chickens whole in the middle of the night or in the evening, and then one of the students would go, meat has to be soaked and salted. We don't know about it because we get it frozen, ready to eat. But before it can be eaten, meat and chicken has to be soaked and salted. Soaked for half an hour, salted for an hour, and then rinsed afterwards twice. It's a whole big process. So they used to do, one of the students in yeshiva would stay up all night and cleaning the chickens. So we would keep track of which chickens came in when, what was dairy, what was meat. So all of this kind of gave me a little bit of understanding of kitchens. Let me add this now.
It looks like you did not get much influence from French food regarding cheese. Is that right?
1 second. First of all,
That looks so good, Rabbi Levin.
the yeshiva in France could have been in Italy, could have been in America, could have been anywhere. It was like a bubble. We were in a little bubble. We used to go out to visit people, Jewish people in Paris on Sundays once in a while. There was a synagogue where they had weddings. They would have like factory weddings. So the chuppah would be in the synagogue and they would have hundreds of people coming to chuppah, one after the other. And we would go there and meet Jewish people and invite them to put on tefillin, talk to them about Judaism, because many of these Jews had no connection, no knowledge of Judaism. So we would go and hang out with them. But otherwise, we weren't in Paris. We were in the yeshiva. And the influence was much more Russian than French over there. We did have a Moroccan cook, and she used to add some food to her oil. You know, the chicken, she had oil on the chicken. I used to watch her do it because I used to go to the kitchen. I couldn't imagine the amount of oil she used on everything. Tasted good, but you know. And then when I was in yeshiva in Israel, so in Israel, my aunt, this is actually funny. My aunt ran the kitchen in Israel. She was my father's brother's wife, and they would have dinners there. In Israel, the main meal is lunch. And dinner would be kind of, I don't know, some salads, some eggs, whatever. So every once in a while, the woman who served, my aunt would go home in the afternoon. So the woman who served dinner every once in a while would say to me, your aunt said the food's not so good tonight. You should go to her house. She has dinner for you at home. Anyway, but I, you know, got my way around in yeshiva and here and there and at home and picked up some tricks along the way. All right, let me check out these vegetables again.
So, what's your favorite food, Rabbi? You born in England, then went to France.
My favorite food has changed. My favorite food has changed since I don't eat meat and I don't eat dairy. So I don't eat my favorite foods anymore. But my favorite food now is this one. This is actually one of my favorites. A really good piece of fish. I like a good salad. I mean, believe it or not, if you told me 6 years ago, I started my program 6 years ago, that I would tell you today that my favorite food is a good salad, I'd think you were crazy. But that's how it is, you know, we change, change. So my favorite food now would be a really good salad, a good pasta with vegetables, or rice with vegetables. Now what I'm going to do with the fish is I'm going to cut it thin strips. And if you were doing tuna, you would do exactly the same thing. Thin strips.
You put this in a salad so you get it.
And I'm going to cut it now this way. With tuna, I would have cut it even, the thick part, even a little bit thinner. Salmon is more forgiving. And this will be ready in a few minutes to put into the pan. Let me check out how the vegetables are doing.
Right to the front.
She said he just got it. It scours with the ceramic.
I'm going to give the vegetables another 3 to 5 minutes. They're really ready. I like them more brown. If I wasn't doing this show now, I'd probably leave them on for another 10, 15 minutes and let them brown a lot more, but they're okay now. Another couple of minutes, I'm going to add this spice mixture and let it cook in a little bit to it. And then I have one more secret after that. And then it'll taste really good. And this time I'm going to eat it, actually. Last few weeks, I didn't eat what I cooked, but this is something that I personally eat. I believe very strongly in the power of food to heal and the power of food to keep us healthy. With Hashem's help, prayer, having a good kosher mezuzahs, putting on tefillin, studying Torah, all of those, exercising, and eating good food all keep us healthy. The body, God gave us a body that is miraculous. As we say in every morning prayer, we say, God heals all flesh and does wonders. And the wonders, the body itself can heal itself and keep itself healthy if we give it the right food and we eat it in the right proportions. So that's part of what food to me is very much more than just food. It's also trying to eat healthy and trying to eat the right foods. Okay, let me check this out. And now I'm going to add.
Lettuce, cabbage, onion, that green stuff.
I'm going to mix this in. And I'm going to let it sit and cook in for a couple of minutes.
Then he talks it down.
We're going to let that cook for a couple of minutes.
So you have to.
Do you have a question?
You haven't put the almond flour.
I did. I just put the almond flour mixture in just now. So the almond flour and the spices just went in now. As I said, if you like salt, you should have added. I didn't add salt, and also some people would like pepper if you want. You can add pepper. You can add all kinds of spices. Sometimes I use marjoram. Sometimes I would use other things. I don't personally eat garlic, so I didn't use any garlic. Garlic would be good to add to it. I would probably, if I eat garlic, probably add some garlic to it too.
In Chinese cooking, it's very good to use for cooking fish.
What is?
Ginger.
Ginger, okay.
And
Yeah.
ginger is also very healthy. During COVID-19, if you eat more ginger, generally speaking, you'll be more of ability to resist COVID-19 infection.
How much of it do you have to eat to get that?
We usually just slice it and then boil. Just drink the liquid.
Okay.
Mhm. And then also ginger can take away the smell, the fishy smell. One is ginger, one is wine in Chinese cooking. This is what they often use to get rid of.
Well, I have something else that does that, and that's this. Is it working? A second. Someone's called. Okay, I use. I'm gonna switch. I use balsamic vinegar. That gives it a very, it's very interesting. It gives it a strong taste, gives it a sweet, strong and sweet at the same time. It's a wonderful, I use it in a lot. I use it as dressing and salad also, and it does really well with the fish. So now I'm going to add some balsamic vinegar. Now I'm just going to pour. I would say that I pour about 2 or 3 tablespoons. I don't know exactly how much, but I'll show you how I do it here. Just kind of pour it in.
Okay, so it's a really handsome amount. Okay.
A handsome amount, yeah, because I like it strong. Let that cook in for a couple of minutes. And then once that cooks in, then the fish. Now, putting in the fish, the way you do the fish is very important. This is the most important part of the rest of it. You know, you'll figure out. But the fish is the most important. If you want moist fish, and you like moist fish, then you have to do it this way. Otherwise, it'll be dry. Now, again, with salmon is very forgiving, so salmon you could do it. But with tuna, if you're using tuna, unless you do it, cook it just the right amount of time and not overcook it, it'll be very dry. If you overcook it, it becomes very dry. So we don't want it to be dry. So here's what I'm going to do with the fish.
If you use tilapia, maybe it's drier. And
I only eat saltwater fish. Tilapia is not a saltwater fish. Salmon is actually not ideal because salmon grows up starts in the river, but since since it's in the sea, so it's okay. But I only eat part of my nutrition program, which believes that different people are different. One of the things for me is to eat only. So I don't eat trouts. I don't eat whitefish. I don't eat gefilte fish. Gefilte fish a lot of people like, but you know how you can tell. I told this before. You know, you can tell the gefilte fish in the ocean. Which one is the gefilte fish? You know how you can tell? It's the one that has the little orange yarmulke on its head. Anyway. Okay, now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move all the vegetables over to the side.
Mm.
And I'm going to try and put all the fish down straight in the pan.
Then you cover it with the vegetables.
Getting ahead of yourself a little bit. Be careful with your fingers because it's hot. And I'm going to cook it now that it's in there. I'm actually going to set the timer. I'm going to cover it. I'm going to set the timer for 1 minute, 60 seconds. 1 minute. So I used to think the fish had to be cooked like meat, but the more you cook it, and when I started, the better it is. And then when I started working with fish, I started learning that no, that's not the case. With the fish, it's the opposite. You want to go as short as possible.
And Rabbi Levin, are you using very gentle fire?
And right now it's medium, but I have a very small flame. I'm using the smallest flame on the stove, very, very small flame, and I have it at medium. The thing is, I like to cook slowly because I'd rather have a lower flame cook longer, because the longer you cook it, the more the flavors come in, the more the moisture comes out, and then it dries out. As it cooks, it dries out, and it becomes, the vegetables, and then they become more brown. But that's, yeah, I like to do it on a low flame.
Yes,
But
fish.
it's on a medium low right now, medium flame right now. Okay. Now I'm going to turn the fish over. As you can see, it's already partially cooked through in the 1 minute. I'm going to turn it all over. And as I'm doing this, what happens is that the first pieces that I put down are getting turned over first, so that way they get kind of equal cooking. All the pieces get equal cooking. We have equality between the pieces. That was a joke. All right.
So a lot easier to use a chopstick to turn over the fish.
If you're Chinese, I agree. I tried chopsticks. I can do them once in a while just to show off, but I really don't know how to use them.
It takes a little practice.
Yeah.
Looks so good.
Okay, now I'm going to cook it for 1 more minute. 1 more minute, not more than a minute.
Yes, the fish generally, if it's dry, it does not taste as good.
Right. So once it's cooked for 2 minutes, 1 minute on each side, then I turn it off and let it sit a little bit longer. Unless you want it really like rare in the middle, then you can take, if you want it rare in the middle, you can take the fire, you can take it off the fire right away. And I do, or you can take it out of the pan right away. I let it sit a little bit longer. So, and now I'm going to drain the noodles.
I see your diet is very healthy, Rabbi Levin. You picked all the healthy ingredients.
I poured the noodles into a colander and I'm letting them, okay, now we have the minutes. I'm going to turn off the fire. I'm going to stir this a little bit. The tuna would have held up better. The salmon kind of fell apart. Tuna would have held up better, but there it is. The noodles are draining in a moment. I'll put it on the plate and it's ready to eat. Now I will tell you, the amount of balsamic vinegar I used was a lot. You could use less if you don't like such a strong taste. But if you don't use salt, and you don't use pepper, you don't use garlic, so that actually adds, enhances the flavor. All right, let me take some of this.
In Chinese cooking, this is a good time to sprinkle scallion on top of it. It will look.
What about adding lemon?
Lemon
No,
too.
we don't need lemon because you have the You don't need lemon because you have the vinegar. The vinegar does the job of the lemon.
Ah, okay.
Rabbi, do you ever eat sashimi?
Yes, I do sometimes. As a matter of fact, I have to tell you that one of these days we're thinking of doing a sushi show. But it's going to be sushi for the ordinary person, so everyone can make it, not the fancy schmancy stuff that you have to have a chef. My whole point is to make it available to everybody. So we're going to do that one of these days. One of our shows is going to be that. Okay, we're going to take some of this.
Yum.
It looks like
And
mashallah.
this is dinner.
Yeah, right.
Yummy.
Did I taste it? Okay, people want me to taste it. So we're going to make two brachas here. First, a bracha on the vegetables. Let me see it. Let me see it.
Very
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri ha'adama.
Amen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nהיה b'dvarim.
Amen.
Amen.
And no salt with the rice pasta is still good.
Come over and have some. It's delicious. It's really good.
Yashikoa.
Dinner. All right, everybody. That's the salmon or tuna with vegetables and pasta. Hope you enjoy it all. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Dr. Esther Tebeka, thank you so much for joining us and for asking the questions and being here with us. I appreciate it very much.
Yashikoa.
Thank you.
Thank you. It looks wonderful. Thank you, Esther.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zagazun.
Take care.
Can you tell us which balsamic vinegar you use?
Yes,
Which
I'll tell you
one?
which one I use. Balsamic vinegar needs to be kosher. The
Right.
problem with a lot of the kosher balsamic vinegars,
Rose,
is that they have stuff in it, they have junk in it, like they have caramel color and this and that. This particular brand, and you can get it from their website, Bella Rosa. It's a kosher company. They make wines and olive oils and this, and I found it by accident. And it's made of the ingredients are pure ingredients. It comes from the grape, and that's it. And it's a wonderful, wonderful, it's a really good tasting balsamic vinegar.
Great.
Okay. Any other questions?
Can you use that instead of apple cider vinegar?
I don't use apple cider vinegar. I don't know, but I would imagine it has a sweetness to it. It has a very unique taste, and it's a wonderful taste. And you can use it in, like I said, I use it for salad dressing and cooking anything that needs some flavor. If you don't use salt especially, but if you want some really good, it's a sour, sweet and sour flavor all by itself. It does the sweet and sour automatically. Usually sweet and sour, you put lemon, you put sugar. This one, it does it both at the same time. It's very good.
There's something else also that's similar thing. It's called roasted garlic rice vinegar. You can get that from Smart and Final. It comes in a big jar, big container. It also has this sweet and sour taste.
It's very
If you
different.
garlic,
Rice
yeah.
vinegar is very different than, yeah.
All right, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.